All right, we have here a game against Olafsson.
Yeah, Olafsson was, a legendary figure in Icelandic chess. I mean, he was also the president of the FIDE, of International Chess
At
Federation.
that time, he was the president during this
He
game.
was, in one time, I mean, for a long period, he was the president, and he was a very good president of FIDE compared with some other presidents later on. And he was also a very strong chess player. I mean, he was between the first 8, 10 in the world. He played also candidate matches and so on. He had victories against very strong opponents and so very respected
From
figure. Yeah.
Iceland.
No, internationally. I mean, he was the best
Yeah, yeah,
player
yeah.
from Iceland. Yes, of course.
From
Yes.
Iceland.
And we'll have a very important, theoretically very important game here, played in Moscow in 71 in the big tournament organized in memory of Alekhine. So
So
I
you played
played with White,
with White.
and it was a little bit unusual, the opening. After d5, if White plays here d4, we have a Grünfeld, a normal Grünfeld. So instead, White can take in d5, and after knight takes d5, queen a4 check. This is more or less, a little bit less usual, let's say, than compared with some other continuations. But it's okay for White. White is always a little bit better. Now Black has possibility to play bishop d7, c6, and after bishop d7, after this move, White plays queen h4. But instead of bishop d7, he could play immediately c6. That is the main alternative, after the queen in a4.
Yeah.
And instead of bishop d7, c6. After c6, White is, clearly better after queen d4. After queen d4, now you have, if you want to protect the rook, you have to move f6 or knight f6. If you move immediately knight f6, after queen takes d8, you have no castle anymore, and White is better, clearly. So the king takes, e4, d4, White controls the center and is clearly better, in any position. So instead of this, c6, queen d4,
C6.
Yeah, c6, queen d4. If he plays f6, you have time to play immediately e4, and White is again clearly better because you have to move the knight, and you have no castle anymore, and the rook and the bishop from f8 have not such a good possibility to play, and White has the advantage. Because here it's not possible to play immediately e5. If you play e5, you lose in a few moves. After knight takes e5, it's possible to have this continuation. You can't take in e5 because you lose the rook. If not, after knight takes c3, queen takes d8 check, and knight f7, Black is lost. So, okay, the advantage is clear. That was the alternative. Okay, knight, bishop d7, and now queen h4. And from now on, the game will be very interesting because Black has the possibility to show that the queen in h4 has not such a good place, and maybe has some tactical threats against this queen. But it's not the case. We'll see. So he goes back to f6, and now g3, c5. He wants to control a little bit the center. Bishop g2, knight c6. Okay, castle, bishop g7, now d4. Very normal move. After d4, White is, in my opinion, White is clearly better. Now, if he takes immediately in d4, after knight d4 and queen b6, let's say that was maybe the alternative, takes in d4 and knight d4. If he wants something, he has to play queen b6, pardon. But now, after knight b3, castle and bishop e3, the advantage from White is clear. White is much better, Because if you go back with the queen in c7, for instance, after rook c1, rook d1, knight c5, knight b5, knight d5, all over, White is clearly better, Controls every square. So, okay, that was the alternative. After d4, he played knight g4. It was, a small trap, because now if you take in c5, he has time to attack somehow your queen after h6, that was the idea. To play h6 with the threat, very unpleasant threat, g5. Because if you play now g5, queen h6, you lose the queen after knight back to f6. That was the idea from black, So, okay, knight d5, knight g4 was the threat. So you have to move something. D takes c5 is very complicated because you can sacrifice the queen for 3 pieces, but it's very complicated, in some positions. So the best move is, here to play simply d5. And now everything is forced. Knight d4 is a good move, normal. We attack the knight. So has no time to play immediately h6 because you lose a piece. So of course you have to do something with black. So you have to take in f3, and now I took with the bishop. It was also very good to take with the pawn. The advantage is clear. If you take with the pawn, for instance, you go back to e5, you have immediate bishop h6 or f4, and you control everything, as white is clearly better. But I had some other idea. I played bishop takes f3, and that gives the impression from black that has no problem at all. I mean, black is very good position, but it's all an impression, you'll see. The position is very dangerous for black, So knight e5, and I played...
Is already dangerous?
Dangerous. You'll see in a few moves. We'll see the result. We'll give, bishop h6. That is very important to trade the black bishop. The black bishop defends very well the position from his king, So if we realize this, we are clearly better with white. So he doesn't want to trade the bishops. Okay, we move back. And now he took in g5. I took, and now f6. That is provocative. That is a little bit too much, Maybe he had to take in f3 and castle, even if white is clearly better there, but it's not so easy. The advantage is clear for white, but you have to demonstrate. After f6 and queen h6,
castle. But why the advantage is still good for, because he has an attack on the king side, or
you'll see in a few moves.
Okay.
In a few moves, everything will be very clear. Now, after queen h6, queen b6, that is a little bit too much, He had to, in my opinion, he had to play king f7. If taking in f3 or immediately king f7 was a little bit, some chances to have a, maybe an even game. But now, after this d6, black is lost in all positions. Here, already. Why? We'll see why.
The idea with this c6
d6 opens completely the position, and finally you have the chance to put a knight on d5. And if we arrive with the knight in d5, in every position is decisive. You'll see. So he took in f3, I took back, and now what can he play? He took in d6, because if he doesn't take in d6, it's finished. He doesn't have time. Okay, I played rook d1. He has to move back the queen, and now... Okay, knight d5. And now what can he play? Now he's lost in all positions. We threaten already queen c7, knight c7 check. No?
Yes.
And he has no time to castle long side. It's the only possibility, it's castle long side. Because if he played, for instance, king f7, again, lost immediately after knight c7. King f7, knight c7, and not only that he loses the exchange from a8, but he loses also the pawn from h7, and the king is completely helpless. So, okay, now, for instance, castle long side, and after... No, this is completely lost. Yeah.
Yes.
After knight c7. Okay, castle long side. Now we give a check in e7. Yeah. King b8 first. No.
Yes.
King b8. Queen f4 check. King a8. Yeah. And now knight back to d5. Completely lost.
Oh, yes.
If we give one check to c7, it's completely lost. Huh? So finally he realized, the danger, but it's too late. King f7, okay, king f7 is desperate move. And now after knight c7, it has to move queen c6, the only move now. We take there. He doesn't have time to take immediately because I told you he loses the pawn from h7 with check and so on. No?
Yes.
So b6, and okay, rook e1. We win in every position. In this position, we have rook up.
He cannot take the knight because he loses this.
Yeah, so he has to move something, but what to do? Again, the only move is the e5, and after e5 you open again the position with f4, and it's completely lost. Now the only thing is to take there. Now you take in h7 with check.
And he resigned.
He resigned because the position is, completely lost. He loses everything here. Not only 2 points or something, but he gets mated probably in the middle of the game or something like this. If you have to move the king to e6, you can imagine what kind of position is this, no?
But here, why not pushing the pawn? Is not possible?
Well, if he pushes the pawn, if white doesn't find something else, he moves finally knight c7 and he wins in every position. But it's not necessary to play knight c7. If he takes, we took in e4 and we win,
Yes.
But instead of this, we can play something else, of course. And let's say here, a move like
Pawn here?
f5, so f5 probably wins also, Now you have to take with the bishop, and after queen f4 again, the game is, completely winning. Because we move in. If you take with the rook in a8, rook d6 win, Rook d6, we have to move queens somewhere, And after the move g4, you are completely lost because you lose the pawn from e6, from f6 with mate, after g4.
Yes.
That's completely winning. The game is much too open, and all the white pieces are playing everywhere. They have a complete control of all the central squares, and the black king is very bad, He didn't realize the dangers, of course, he took a little bit too much risks, from the opening. And it happens always like this, because the white king was already safe in g1, no problem at all. The black king has many problems, you can't hide, finally. You saw the variation that we saw before with castle queen side, where he gets mated at the end,
Yeah.
So, no. But the game was very interesting, of course, very important theoretically in that time. Yeah.
Understood. All right. Thank you.
Because the opponent was very strong also. He played very well, Olafsson. Yeah.
All right.